Savage on the Jungle Rafa coming at you with an interesting video. So, we're about to have a description list in like less than 5 days. Over here it's Tuesday, over there it's Wednesday, but overall, we about to get this ban list started. We about to get this ban list going and everything else like that. However, I want to say before this restriction list happened that I feel like that Tachikaze and Murakumo can actually save the game of Vanguard. Now I know it might be a stretch, but hear me out. I'm gonna give a long explanation as to why I believe that they will actually save the game of Vanguard. And it's gonna be interesting. Don't get me wrong, it's gonna be interesting. So hear me out. Don't call me a dumbass yet. Wait to the end of the video. If you still think if you still think I'm a dumbass for saying this, then go ahead and tell me in the comments. But outside of that, before I want to actually do like an actual like brief history on both clans. Like just a small little just a small little clip of the history on both clans. But before I do that, I want to make this statement about the game and why I do believe that it needs to improve a lot. I feel like if there's anything that Bushiroad definitely needs to do to fix the game of Vanguard is to, I have not stressed this out enough, branch out the support of every clan. Like I feel like that it doesn't make sense that there are certain clans in the game that only get support once a year and then eventually just rot out to whatever the meta has thrown at it, while there's also a lot of clans that gets support like maybe 3-4 times a year. Honestly, I do believe that the support system itself is out of control. It makes no sense. I do feel like a lot of clans get like very unfair treatment due to popularity reasons. But if there's anything that I learned from all this is I've mentioned this before to a lot of people. I mentioned this a lot to people in the community and like other friends and all this other stuff. And one of the things that I commonly hear, one of the things that everybody says, and I noticed this, is at the end of the day, Bushiroad is a company. And because Bushiroad is a company, they have to give support to anything that sells. So basically, your typical Paladin clans, the Kagero clans, the DP and all this other stuff, Gear Chronicle, they get support consistently because this is the thing that everybody and their mama wants to buy. It's always guaranteed sales, so of course they're gonna cater more towards those clans and not really cater towards like the lower tier clans or anything else like that. Sadly, this is a thing, and I know like a lot of people, I know there's some people, especially myself, who feels like that if they give certain clans a chance, they can rise to the occasion and prove everything wrong. So, with that being said, I'm going to get back to that. Let me tell you about the brief history of Tachikaze and Murakumo. So, in the OG era of Vanguard, they both started out. Tachikaze was there longer than Murakumo. Tachikaze's been there since like day one, but Murakumo has been there like a little bit after season 2 due to the simple fact that it was supposed to be the replacement for Nubatama, which honestly, there's a lot of interesting stuff that happens with that. Just know that Bushiroad thought that Nubatama was going to be like stupidly high tier at that early on in the game, so they kind of scrapped it temporarily for Murakumo, which was supposed to be like a lot more fair. Honestly, for a side note, if you compare all the support that Nubatama's gotten from the beginning of the domination support all the way up until Infinity Cradle, they have gotten more support in that short amount of time, in that shortest amount of time span than they have ever gotten since the game started. Like that's how much they ignored Nubatama. But anyway, Tachikaze would sadly fall under what I personally like to call the sub clan curse, because Tachikaze really wasn't like a clan that a lot of people wanted to play. To a lot of people, like it was basically another version of Shadow Paladin. I remember some people called it like the cheaper version of Shadow Paladin, and then Murakumo was kind of got it even worse, although they were kind of lucky to get a reverse unit. But the reason why I call Tachikaze the sub clan curse is because their generic support really wasn't that great and up to par compared to like all like the dominated decks at the particular time. And if you wanted to play Tachikaze and play like it in a competitive setting, you kind of sort of had to go to Ancient Dragons, because Ancient Dragons was the thing that had all the consistency, it had all the power, it had like an actual like focus to it, compared to something like, let's say, the Ride Chain, which I hope they bring the Ride Chain back. I'm not gonna lie, third wave support, bring back the Ride Chain on third wave support, and a couple of other things. I do even remember like Tachikaze at one point had like a 7k grade 3, and it really wasn't that good. It was like a rear guard only ability. But outside of that, man, they had like Ancient Dragons as like their only way of actually playing in a competitive setting. However, they were not the only one. Another clan that kind of suffered from this was Pale Moon with the Silver Thorns, because again, their generic support wasn't that great. It had a focus, but it wasn't really that good. But if you wanted to play them in a competitive setting, you had to play Silver Thorns. And sadly, despite having more diversity in the G era with Nightmare Dolls and Harry, they went right back to square root one currently in the meta right now, where you have no choice but to play Silver Thorns if you want to be a competitive Pale Moon player. Last but not least, you have my most favorite clan, Mega Colony, which also suffered from this with the machining mechanic, because let's be real, Giraffe, Hell Spider, and all this other stuff really wasn't doing that great. There wasn't a lot of support revolved around them, and because of this, machinings was the only way to go, because that was the best support that they got and everything else. But again, this is not about those two clans. This is definitely about Tachi's and Murakumo. Tachikaze wouldn't actually get a reverse unit, but Murakumo definitely did. Murakumo got Hiyaki reverse. The Hiyaki thing was actually one of their very good strong points. And honestly, for what Murakumo did around the OG era Vanguard, which was basically just clone each other out, shadow clone jutsu, like hashtag. But outside of like the whole shadow clone jutsu thing, is like you also had Neo Nectars that can do it, and they can slightly do it better only because of the Spirit Ball. But outside of that, like nobody is really interested in playing Murakumo, because you know, if it wasn't the Paladins or it wasn't Kagero or Link Joker, you know, all the clans didn't really matter like that. So of course you did have people like myself who played Tachikaze and Murakumo because they liked the flavors of the clan or anything else like that, or something that they liked about it that nobody else did. The G era was a little bit more favorable towards both of these clans, but they weren't as favorable. For a prime example, they both showed up in a thing called technical boosters. Now, for those who hasn't been around in the G era of Vanguard, technical boosters was this thing where Bushy World would say that these were supposed to be and extra boosters for the clans that they didn't get a chance to get to. However, everybody in the Vanguard community, especially the people who played these clans, knew that it was Bushiroad way of passively aggressively saying that these are the clans that we don't give a shit about, but we have to give them support anyway. So here you guys go. Volume 1, the technical booster, had Tachikaze along with Nubatama and Spike Brothers. Wave the Volume 2 had Murakumo along with Great Major and Mega Colony. And trust me, they did not age well. Like the technical boosters were well. Fully dedicated to the technical boosters and the bullshit that happened with it. So I'm not really going to go into the detail. I'm just going to move on. Overall, in the OG version of Vanguard, Tachikaze really never had a representative. Instead, they kind of got like minor characters, and the same thing kind of happened with Murakumo. While they did get both Shingo and Mark, they weren't around. Mark wasn't around long enough to like make it justifiable, and Shingo was consistently like going through different clans throughout the whole series anyway, so it wasn't like, so he was like not really deadlocked onto a clan, sadly. But in the G era, they kind of sort of got representatives. They got 2 characters from the New Japan team in Vanguard Next. That was a Tachikaze player and a Murakumo player, and then Tachikaze got Rive, which is Chrono's dad, and they got Shinamon that was playing Murakumo. But again, they didn't have enough screen time to play the clans that they wanted to play. So because of that, Tachis and Murakumo, they would get support every once in a while. At the end of the day, this kind of went back to how it was in the OG era of Vanguard. They were just not powerhouse enough for enough people in the general public of Vanguard to really care about these 2 clans. You know, of course, they got like they got Gear Chronicle, and they got Kagero, and all this other stuff. Even Narukami sometimes will even come up with this ever since the whole V-Buster shit. But outside of that, you know, nobody really cared enough in the general public for these 2 particular clans for a lot of people to play. And because of that, you know, sadly, they didn't really get enough playtime. Luckily, Tachikaze every once in a blue moon will actually show up at first place at a BCS sometimes. But outside of the G era and the OG era, we now have the reboot, which is the V era, and now we're starting to see a lot of people picking up both of these clans because Bushiroad has made huge improvements to both of these clans. Murakumo and Tachikaze has both this year showed up in both the BCS and the WGP. Tachikaze making first place in the WGP, and Murakumo making runner-up in both the WGP and the BCS in standard format. And right now, a lot of people in the community want both of these clans to get hit because Anchor Blader is way too powerful of a card. It's a really high roller, and when it works in their favor, 98% of the time you're going to lose. And then with Murakumo, you just have the whole Hyuga thing. But even before Hyuga, you still had dual dragons. You still had dual dragons in Baku that was doing the thing. And of course, let's not forget about Shiryuki. I mean, let's be real, like, Murakumo been hitting nothing but bangers, like, ever since they came out in the V era. My friend did say, it was funny, he was like, yo, if your clan sucked ass in G era, your clan is fucking busted in V era. Like that's what he said, and I kind of actually believe that when you like look at everything. But back to my other statement that I was talking about before, where everybody was like, "Yo, Bushiroad at the end of the day is a company, so they have to cater towards anything that they will see making them money. So of course they'll have to stick to whatever clans that they know for a fact is making them money. Like of course the Paladin clans and all this other stuff." My thing is Murakumo and Tachikaze are legitimate proof that if you give a clan good enough support, people will buy. And I cannot stress that up. I cannot stress that out enough. If you would have told anybody back in the day during the G era or the OG, or even the OG era of Vanguard, that Tachikaze and Murakumo would become a huge threat to the meta, somebody would slap the shit out you. But then again, during the G era, we also seen this happen with Grand Blue. Grand Blue didn't really have any type of play and didn't have enough play in the OG version of Vanguard. But not only did Grand Blue top and win an actual BCS, it actually caused enough issues to get hit on the restriction list. And it actually became a problem way back in 2015, 2016, even 2017. The clan was just that powerful because Bushiroad gave them enough support and it gave them a hard enough push to do so. My thing is, all Bushiroad has to do with all the lower tier clans is do that exact same thing, and people will buy. People will want that particular clan. Like, we had a shit ton of representatives playing Murakumo in, the BCS and the WGP and all this other stuff. And the same thing with Tachikaze. There was so much Murakumo players at the BCS, it overshadowed Shadow Paladin players. No, I did not do that as a pun intended. Like, you know what I mean? They overshadow all the more popular clans. It overshadowed Shadow Paladins. It overshadowed Royals. It overshadowed Golds. It overshadowed Link Joker and all this other stuff. There was like a lot of people playing Murakumo over everything else, especially all the more popular clans that Bushiroad wants to push because of money reasons. And my thing is, the reason why these two particular clans can save the game of Vanguard is because nobody could know, for one, nobody can never use this excuse of, yeah, you have to play these particular clans in order to win, in order to get like Bushiroad to make more support. But it just proved, Bushiroad themselves, everybody else, it just proved that, Murakumo, Tachikaze, and, everything else in between can actually do that. Matter of fact, let's look at all the other clans that came out of the technical booster. Like I said before, technical booster was that thing where Bushiroad said that we don't give a shit about these clans, but we have to give them support anyway. You have Spike Brothers, where I will admit they're not doing that good in standard format. I mean, they're pretty good, but not that good. But, we've seen them top a lot of times in regional tournaments with, Hell Hard 8 ever since that came out. With Nubatama, we've seen Nubatama top a lot ever since they got the remastered one with Domination. And even then with the V era, we've seen at some particular points, we've seen them become a huge threat with the discard turbo. And then you also got to remember that the restriction of Jamie Congo and Rene exists because you already know if both of them exist at the same time without the choice restriction, I feel like Nubatama will be near tier 0. That's how good it will be. That's how good that particular thing will be. this is even including the typical ones that also shows up, like you know, gold paladins, neo nectars, dark irregulars, and all this other stuff. This is including them in general. It will still be a near tier 0 deck, just for the simple fact they can leave you with little to nothing to work with, and that's a fact. Mega Colony actually won last year. Actually won a BCS in premium format when like the biggest threat was gold paladins in that particular format too. They won a BCS, and honestly, me as a Mega Colony main was very, very shocked that that actually happened. I would have never expected Mega Colony to win a BCS. I would have never expected that. If you would have told me that when I started the game, I kind of would have. I would have loved it, but I would have been like Hawkeye. I would have been like, "Yo, don't give me hope. Don't give me hope like that." But they did it. Great Nature last year again, they topped it as well. Matter of fact, Great Nature has been consistently topping regionals all over. They don't top it as often, and it doesn't come up as often, but when it does, you can see the results of, you know, what that clan can do. My thing is overall, I feel like that people don't give enough credit for, you know, the little underdog clans, and I feel like that all of this should be a prime example of Bushiroad really pushing to give more support for some of the like the lower, less named clans and everything else. You know, I'm getting sick and tired of, oh yeah, this clan is only going to get support once a year, or we're going to wait like a year and a half in order to give like these particular clans, you know, any type of support whatsoever, because we know for a fact that they're not popular. My thing is, if you give enough support, then you can definitely do it. I mean, let's be real. Let's look at, even looking at Murakumo right now. All 3 times Murakumo got support, they were like, as far as case splitting goes, they were like the least ones. You know, they were like $70 to $90 case splits. But look at Shadow Paladins, which they all got support at the same time. They were like 250, 300 case splits. And guess what? Shadow Paladins is like the most expensive deck in the game, and it still gets overshadowed and it still gets overstunned by Murakumo. So again, you know, just looking at that alone, where Murakumo was like, would cost a lot less compared to Shadow Paladins, which cost hella more just because it was Shadow Paladins, definitely proved my point right here. So, I've rambled on long enough. Hopefully that the hits aren't too hard with these 2 particular clans, and if they are, we all had a good run. But with that being said, my name is Mrs. Nation, aka Savage Armor Jones Rafa. Hope you enjoyed the video. I'm signing out.